Welcome to The Uncomfortable Truth, where we answer the questions we all need to be asking about race and racism in America. I'm Loki Mulholland.
And I'm Levon Brown.
And it's time to get uncomfortable. It was kind of, I don't know, you kind of waited too long to jump in there.
Yeah, I was, because yes, I did.
What happened?
I have I have a cold or something.
Yeah.
And
Ooh, okay.
I was about to, I don't know what I was doing, but I got caught up.
All right, you got caught in the emotion. Is that what it was?
No, yeah, that's what it was.
So, all right. You know, I could leave Utah, but I can't leave it alone, I guess. So, on July 4th, the Utah chapter of Black Lives Matter put out this post. And in it, the leader of the Utah chapter of Black Lives Matter said this: "When we Black Americans see this flag, we know the person flying it is not safe to be around. When we see this flag, we know the person flying it is a racist. When we see this flag, we know that the person flying it lives in a different America than we do. When we see this flag, we question your intelligence. We know to avoid you. It's a symbol of hatred."
What flag is that?
The American flag. And she says, when we Black Americans, so there's a blanket sweep statement here that all Black Americans, when they see the flag, they know that the person who flies it has to be a racist.
I'm laughing because my niece, her husband just became an admiral in the Navy.
Yeah. And I sit there and I'm going, just yesterday, I was at Medgar Evers' grave in Arlington Cemetery,
right,
where this World War II veteran served. And he served because he believed he needed to. Now, I know you have questioned repeatedly, why would African Americans serve and fight for a country that didn't want them? Right. But yet, he did.
Yeah, but not only that, I give them their due. I mean, they fought. They could have died. So I never do anything that messes with a soldier or whatever, seaman or anybody, because they're doing what they believe is right.
Right.
And I respect that. That doesn't mean anything about the person. That just means that's what they did. They know when they came home, they couldn't vote, they couldn't do a whole bunch of things. And this was their way of saying, when I finish doing this, I'll be treated differently.
Right.
Some of them believe that.
Yeah.
When they came home, the GI Bill and all that stuff was denied them, but they tried.
Yeah.
And I admire that. So first of all, you don't know that the person is a racist.
Right.
They may have some racist tendencies that they don't know about. They may have racial tendencies that they know about. The point is, you don't know unless you ask them.
Right.
I mean, I understand. Now, if I see somebody flying a Trump flag, it's going to be big. It's going to do anything that way. I will question a whole bunch about them, but not necessarily their intelligence. I learned while I was in the South, and even in the North, that it's not the person that stands out there that tells me, that shouts, I'm a Trumpist, I'm a this. That's not the guy I worry about. That's not the guy who's wields any power, who's doing anything.
Yeah.
Except for Lindsey Graham, maybe.
Right. Yeah.
We excuse him. Most of the people that you can't make a statement. See, that's the problem, right? Now that whole statement makes an assumption.
Well, it makes two assumptions. Black,
I'm none of those things.
Well, it makes three assumptions. So one is the one you just said.
You don't know who I am. You don't know what I'll do. I may not care any more about you than the white man does. As a matter of fact, I may care less. You can't do that. That doesn't lead to a conversation. That leads to a lot of mad people. That's what you think.
Right.
But it doesn't do anything for organizing people.
Exactly. And it automatically makes it so the other assumption is that all Black people see this. So now
Right.
what does that do for those white people who go, yeah, that's just one more thing. For them to go, yeah, you see Black people hate America.
Right.
Because these are the same people who are sucked in on critical race theory and the statues and whatever else. So all they need to see is, here's a Black person, it's Black Lives Matter, and she said Black Americans think we're all racist and that the American flag is a symbol of hate. Now, in some places, the American flag is. In a lot of places, it's a symbol of freedom.
The problem is there's an assumption in that statement. I mean, that's what she thinks.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now, we have people on the other side of the fence who do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that I guess we're used to it, or there's so few of them that actually come out. For instance, all of the people that what's her first name? Taylor Greene's first name.
Taylor Greene. Oh, that Marjorie or whatever her name is.
Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Has said all kinds of racist shit.
Mm-hmm.
She gets treated as an individual,
mm-hmm.
right? We are not accorded that same privilege.
Right.
So that's why Margaret Taylor Greene can say what she says, but you can't.
Yeah. Now,
because the problem is that Margaret Taylor Greene has a place in the American society.
Right.
You don't.
Right.
And that's unfortunate, but that's true. There are things you just don't say. First of all, it's misleading people.
Right.
So I, who am 13% of the population, all the white people that have the American flag are racist.
Mm-hmm.
Well, where does that leave me?
Right.
I mean, somebody just went around my neighborhood and put American flags on every yard.
Mm-hmm.
All those people that have the American flag are racist.
Right.
You can't make that. I don't know. You just can't.
So,
one of the women, the woman who started it, one of them I know just quit. I don't know why she quit, but she just quit. The problem is we excuse the people like that.
right.
We excuse Black Lives Matter, the people in Black Lives Matter who make statements like that. We excuse them because
but now it becomes ammunition because they're Black.
Of course it is.
So here's what happens as well. So the story continues. So Janetta Williams is the president of the NAACP, the tri-state area, the Utah State Conference. And I do have to say she is also a friend of mine. She came out with a statement. So the NAACP does not agree with that statement and rejects the idea that flying the American flag is a racist message. The flag stands for all people who have lived and served to bring about the best of the American experience, that all people are created equal. Real American patriots have stood for equality and justice for all. While we recognize that the history of our nation is marked with both failures and successes in the treatment of minorities, we know the way forward starts with respect and togetherness for all Americans. The flag represents the highest aspirations expressed from the founding of the Union through the Emancipation Declaration, the 13th and 14th Amendment to the Constitution, the enactment of the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, the millions of Americans who support their fellow citizens of all races, national origins, and color. That was Janetta's response. Well, Lex Scott, who's the president and founder of BLM Utah, couldn't leave it alone. She had to respond back. She starts off with a grievance of sorts that she never got any response from the NAACP when she tried to join them and whatever else. And how over the last 8 years, her work in the civil rights has been hard. It's been painful. Sometimes I have felt lost. I have wanted someone to mentor me, someone to guide me. There's no handbook for civil rights. I wish that there was, but there isn't. I've always tried to support the NAACP. I have told people to buy membership. I have told people to support their work. I'll continue to do that. On the Hill, when it came to police reform, Black Lives Matter and NAACP have not agreed. We do not agree on the same police reform bills. We have been in many meetings together and many panels. We do not always agree, and that's okay. What I will not tolerate is white organizations pitting black organizations against each other.
What is the white organization?
That's a great question. And that's not what Janetta was talking about. Her response to Janetta becomes, I will not not tolerate white organizations pitting black organizations against each other. That happens frequently. People are constantly trying to pit us against the NAACP. It's not right, and I will not call for it. And so the NAACP took the bait. So Janetta responds, because definitely in the news, people were saying these things, and they want to group the NAACP together with Black Lives Matter. And Janetta had to say, hey, wait a second. We do not support what she is saying. This is how we feel about it. She didn't say Black Lives Matter is wrong. I think Lex Scott's, crazy. That's not. She didn't say anything like that. She said, this is what we believe.
Right.
Lex says that Janetta took the bait, and that's just white people trying to pit black people against each other.
One of the things we ought to be teaching, in addition to, what history was like in the movement, is how one goes about fighting a war. Here's two groups of people that ought to be together doing what they do. And instead, this person from Black Lives Matter just wants to fight.
Right.
She wants to be the queen bee, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Because first of all, I don't know of any white organization. I don't know who she's talking about. Maybe she's talking about the NAACP. I don't know.
Or the press or whomever else.
But there were arguments among the NAACP, the Muslims, SNCC, you name it, back in the day. But when the push came to shove, they knew how to do it in the dark and then come out fighting.
Right.
Their own way. We never got in the way of the NAACP doing what it wanted to do. And some members of the NAACP supported what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, SNCC could not afford those lawyers that we were getting. And we didn't know the people that we were getting.
Couldn't even afford the bail.
Somebody had to be doing that. So I think that's a problem. Just because Black Lives Matter is the lead organization in what's going on, the NAACP isn't taking anything away from you by saying what they want to say, doing what they want to do. They're actually fighting the same battle. They just disagree with how.
Right.
They're not creating a division. They're just saying, this is the way we fight. That's the way you fight. This is what we believe. That's what you believe.
But let me ask you this: is the NAACP obligated? Did Janetta do the right thing? Because Lex Scott comes out and says this obviously very very striking statement. It's going to breathe air into some people, into some arguments.
But that's exactly what happens.
And when I actually started Googling it in Google News and searching for it in Google News, so many right-wing rags and so forth picked up on it and were using it. Is the NAACP obligated to come out and say something? Or because, and let me say this, because if Lex had simply said, BLM Utah believes this.
Right.
Instead, she said, all Black people believe this.
Right.
So Janetta Williams, an African-American woman, says, hold on. That's not what all African-Americans believe. We at the NAACP of Utah believe this.
Right.
That's
the right thing.
Right. Because I have to wonder if Lex had left it alone and just simply said, BLM Utah, this is a statement we are making. As a matter of fact, a third person Another civil rights activist in Utah, Kamal Ahmad, said on Twitter, quote, "This group has gone too far," meaning BLM. "The American flag is not a symbol of hate. BLM Utah does not speak for the Black population in this state.
Right.
It would be greatly appreciated if their leadership took ownership for their personal feelings, experiences, and personal views."
Right. That is the best way to have the fight done, as opposed to the NAACP. That was enough. What he just said,
Mm-hmm.
and then the NAACP stays quiet and does what it does.
Right.
Now, they have no way of knowing that he's going to do that.
Right.
He's going to say that, and and a lot of us will feel that way. But I think the person in the NAACP was simply trying to say, you're leading people astray, and you are causing problems where there are none, instead of fighting the problem that exists.
Right. Now let me ask you this.
We're going to fight it over the NAACP, and you guys go ahead and fight the way you're fighting.
Yeah.
But don't call every Black person. Don't speak as if you speak for every Black person. You speak for a segment.
Right.
You speak for some people, but you're using the name Black Lives Matter.
Well, and in particular, she is saying, oh, when we Black Americans see this flag. So a little background for Utah here. The NAACP has always been, the main civil rights organization in Utah.
Right.
Black civil rights organization in Utah.
Right.
Janetta Williams has done a phenomenal job. She's been the leader there for, at least 20 years. She's very, very well connected. She's a very soothing presence, if you will. She works with everybody as in a state that is 98, that has 2% Black, if that. I think it's maybe 1.8%. Right. But she works with the predominant church there. She works with the leadership there. And it's a very pragmatic approach, which is what's always been the NAACP's, methodology. But things do get done. Now, then comes Black Lives Matter, sucking up all the air, if you will, justifiably so. They're out there in the streets. They're hitting it hard. Things explode in 2020, and Black Lives Matter is in the forefront of that. So
the problem is what did they accomplish?
Right.
I mean,
well, they got a lot of money.
Who got a lot of money?
Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
But you've also seen a lot of corporations start to do a few things. You watch the NBA playoffs and so forth. You're seeing statements and things up there. I mean, there's a lot more going on. Obviously, something happened,
right?
Which we need to give Black Lives Matter credit for as well. Right. That suddenly now you're getting this backlash, like in Texas and so forth. You're seeing all these things taking place. That's Black Lives Matter. Put it on the map. I mean, courtesy of Trump blowing it up.
If it had started out with anybody who believes in this, who follows this flag, is a racist,
mm-hmm.
and statements like that, then Black Lives Matter wouldn't have gone anywhere.
Sure. Because
you just wiped out everybody.
Right.
Because you wiped out a lot of Black people and most of the white people,
mm-hmm.
Except for the ones who are crazy, because you just said all of them are racist.
Right.
They're not. So I think the way it was rolled out, the way Black Lives Matter attacked the problem, I think that was correct. I think having all those people out in the street, certainly here, it toned down that kind of rhetoric.
Mm-hmm.
And the Black Lives Matter leadership realized that their help could come from anywhere at any time.
Right.
And that they needed people like the white people, the red people, the Chinese. They needed all of that.
And other organizations.
Right. So maybe in Utah, they didn't see that. Then you're not paying attention to what Black Lives Matter is doing. You go upstate New York, you see Black Lives Matter signs.
Right.
And now ain't many Black people up there, So there must be a lot of white people who say, you're right, we got to stop this. You go out to Hollywood, you see Black Lives Matter, but you see people working with others.
Right.
They're not racist. They're mad about what's happened, and they're willing to accept anybody who's willing to fight the fight, either verbally, well, not physically, but verbally certainly.
Right.
And that's what they got. This person that lives in that saying this in Utah, I don't think so.
So
as soon as we get rid of the people who feel guilty, those corporations, people who feel they should do something, nothing will be happening through that organization in the state of Utah.
Right.
Black Lives Matter will be accomplishing a whole bunch worldwide, but in the state of Utah, if that's the statement you're making, and that is your leadership, I'll let you 10-1 that people are going to back away from that organization.
Right. They don't want to be affiliated with that.
No, why would you?
Right. And so, from the standpoint of Janetta, then representing the NAACP, saying we don't represent that.
Right.
That's a critical move there. But like you said, the third party that jumps in just comes in and says, hey, look, he says, does not speak for the rest of us in this state. And hey, we'd appreciate it if your leadership took ownership of their own personal feelings.
Right.
And personal views.
Right.
And maybe that's just a lack of, it could be, I mean, I don't know all the circumstances behind why Lex said what she said. She might have had a run-in with someone who was waving American flag and cursing her out and saying all lives matter and that sort of stuff, or she could have had, it could be a number of things, or it's just a lack of, professional experience.
I think that's part of it. And I think it's not
dealing with the public per se,
It's not realizing that you could be hurting the very people you're trying to help.
Right.
Because you just made a statement that we're all bigots.
Mm-hmm.
The white people are bigots and the black people are bigots because we don't like white people. You can't trust them. So when an organization that is predominantly white reaches out to help me, I can't accept that help because I can't trust you. Right. What kind of statement is that to make?
And what type of politician in Utah in particular is going to want to talk to you?
I don't think so. You're in the wrong place.
Right.
And there are a lot of black people that feel that way, but they don't say anything.
Right.
And they don't, first of all, they don't lead anything, but they certainly don't say anything. Nothing's going to happen from that person.
But then on top of that, now you've also, you've got African Americans who live there, some of my fraternity brothers there, who serve in the military.
Yeah.
Who are proud of the flag.
Right.
And now what have you done?
See, there's nothing wrong with the flag because we all live under that flag, and the progress that's been made is under it. Mm-hmm. The progress to be made is under it. Mm-hmm. It's different than the regimental flag out of, where is it, Virginia, wherever it is.
Yeah, the Northern Virginia battle flag. Right. Yeah.
It's totally different and we know what they stand for.
Right.
We're clear on that. But when you come to the American flag,
most of us are clear on it.
There's a mix.
Right.
There's a mix. And all that most of the people want is an equal opportunity. And if you're saying that this flag does not offer anybody an equal opportunity, what are you saying?
Right.
You're going to have another flag, or, what's the message here?
Yeah. It's an interesting point you made there, though, that the Confederate flag represents only one thing, and that's hate. That's slavery. That's segregation.
Yep.
The American flag represents a lot of things.
Yeah, it does.
Yes, and some of it is slavery. Yeah. Some of it is Jim Crow.
Yeah.
But it's also emancipation.
Right.
It's also, the work that's gone forth today. It's equal rights and so forth. It represents a lot of people in a lot of places and a lot of faces.
Right. Exactly. We, as a matter of fact, the battles that Black Lives Matter or any organization fights is allowed because under that flag.
Right. But let me ask you this though, because you said back in the day, yeah, you might have had your differences, but you never aired them out loud. You came together. So should Lex Scott of Black Lives Matter called up Janetta Williams and said, "Hey, I'm putting out this statement on the 4th of July. What do you think?" Or is she entitled to just run roughshod like that and just fire it out there? Damn the torpedoes, if you will.
Well,
If you're working together in a state as organizations of civil rights, you have to realize that what one person said reflects on all the organizations.
they're working, they might be working for the same purpose, but they're not working together.
No, well, definitely not. I mean, NAACP didn't always work together with what they did with SNCC in regards to providing money and so forth. But at the end of the day, are you obligated to, as an organization for civil rights, obligated to work to at least let them know what's going on and give them a chance to go, hold on, don't say all black people, hold on.
Right. They should do that. First of all, it's giving everybody a heads up,
Right.
but it's also a way of asking for input.
Right.
And it's saying that, we're in this together. What do you think of this?
Right.
And I would venture that the reason she didn't offer the statement for any kind of criticism is because she didn't want any.
Right.
And
she wasn't feeling she was getting cooperation with the NAACP anyways.
Right.
For whatever reason.
That's not what she wanted.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want the NAACP getting credit for doing anything. She wants the credit.
Right.
I've never met this person. I don't know anything about her, but I'm telling you that I believe that's what that is.
Right. What's remarkable when you look at her statement, in the first paragraph, she says the word "I" 20 times in response. That's just the first paragraph.
Wow.
Janetta never said "I" once. And in her response, she's kind of going after Janetta as well, and the NAACP.
Wow.
Janetta never goes after her, and never goes after Black Lives Matter.
How could you say
her statement
"I" when you're supposedly talking for an organization?
Well, apparently all black people, because that was her statement in the beginning. She starts off saying, "We as Black Americans, ... But then her follow-up statement is all "I."
Yeah.
Even in the first, so.
Yeah,
and this is, and again, part of her point is, so she makes this statement as well, that Janetta took the bait, that these are just white organizations who are trying to pit us against each other, be it the news or whomever, and probably the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and all these different things. However, the very fact that she didn't even give Janetta the opportunity, the heads up,
right.
She created this scenario. What was Janetta supposed to do? If she said nothing, what would have happened? By saying nothing, are you saying that you agree? Or is it the back, or does she just not want to breathe life into it even any further? I kind of felt that Janetta was kind of put into a corner. Clearly, people were calling.
The statement was made on Facebook?
I don't know where her original statement was made, but it was one of those sort of press release type things that she would have done. A Facebook post. So
it depends on a couple of things.
It's done on Facebook.
I would have said was what you feel. I would have worded it and made it very short.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you're dealing with there is somebody who, I don't know. Let me back up. If you feel it's worth it, you call a person and say, "We need to talk."
Mm-hmm.
And you get the person to issue a statement that says, maybe I overstepped or maybe I did whatever. If it's not somebody you think you're going to work with in the future, you make the statement very short, very sweet, to the point. And don't try to respond to every point that she made, because then you're fighting for people.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a reputation, NAACP does, of being an organization that doesn't need to do that. Or
Right.
doesn't do that. Might need to, but that's another story.
Right.
It doesn't do that. That's not how it fights.
Mm-hmm.
you had to be careful that you don't sink to somebody's level like that.
Right.
But that you say in 3 or 4 sentences, NAACP does not believe in X, NAACP does not believe in X, and we will continue our fight with these rules, period. Let the person fight with themselves.
Right.
Anybody that gets in the line and to fight with her is out of their mind anyway. You can't win with a person like that.
Right.
Because they will go to any lengths to prove you wrong.
Right. To protect themselves at that point, their own ego.
Huh?
To protect their ego.
Yeah, that's it. That's all. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
I know that's the way I feel.
I mean, what would be the goal of a statement like that?
That if you need something done, you come to me. You don't go to the NAACP. I feel that it is not an organization that is fighting on your behalf.
Well, and I mean the initial statement even. What is the objective of a statement, of that initial statement that she makes? So the initial statement, when we Black Americans see the flag, we know the person flying is not safe to be around.
Well, there's no logical point. But
Okay.
the point in making it is that, trust me.
Right.
Trust, she's pretending to be, she's positing herself as Black Lives Matter, but she's talking about her. Because what she's made is an incorrect statement. Why should we try to fix that? That's like, the one thing I admire about Joe Biden is he won't talk about what Trump does.
Right.
That's the Trump statement. Let me put that out there. And I'll say that all Black people know that anybody that flies the American flag is a racist.
So let's say the governor comes to Janetta, who's the head of the NAACP in Utah, comes and says, Jenna, what was that about? You go, hey, that's not what we're about. But is that what you do, or do you now all of a sudden got to make a public statement, or do you just deal with it when it comes to you on a one-on-one basis?
But you let somebody else make it.
Right.
Anything that has to be said, somebody of stature, but you tell them that I don't know where she got that from. If you feel the need to, or if she has somebody, pretty high up that who is Black, who wants to refute that, please do.
Right.
Because she's trying to pick a personal fight with her.
Right. Which clearly became the case, because once Janetta makes that statement, responds to it, now all of a sudden she's calling out Janetta. So clearly that became, whether that was her initial agenda or not, but that's definitely what it became. Right. Now it's so and the point I bring all this up is not to discuss whether or not the American flag is a symbol of hate and all these other different things, but for those who are out there in the fight, these organizations, when you are involved in this type of movement, just one more time for the people in the back, how do you work together when you've got varying viewpoints on how to approach a problem as organizations? What's the lesson we can take from how the different organizations in during the civil rights movement worked?
Well, I'll tell you what we did in Mississippi. That's what COFO was all about.
COFO is
Congress of Federated Organizations.
Okay. Which was what?
All the organizations that were fighting Jim Crow in the state of Mississippi joined.
Why did they form up? What was the history behind?
Because they were all fighting the same battle, and they didn't want to be fighting each other to do it. So
why would they be fighting each other? Let me ask that question.
Well, Medgar could have said the NAACP doesn't fight the way you young people do, so we don't want anything to do with you. And we're going to make sure that everybody understands what you're doing. We're not going to, right? Or we could have said the NAACP is a bunch of slow-ass people, and we're not going to wait for them to do anything. That's what happened anyway, but we had Medgar's blessings. Right. Medgar had ours. Right? You do what you got to do. We're going to do this over here. Now, it didn't start out that way, but we had a conversation about here's what we're going to do. So when the voting starts, AMSI and those people will help us fight the Voting Rights Acts, or the Voting Rights Act. and we would keep doing the demonstrations.
Right.
So it was, you do what you want to do, but here's how you do it.
So
And
COFO
here's
became
how
a
we
way
can help.
for, so was COFO a way for the organizations to come together to discuss these points and how you're going to collectively approach this from your different tactics?
Oh yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah. Oh yeah. That's what it was all about.
Because, and I'm just going to play devil's advocate here for a moment.
Sure.
Obviously, fundraising is a critical thing for any organization. So, where's the money coming from, type of thing. And so, Black Lives Matter, Utah, Geneto, NAACP, Utah, they're going after the same dollars in a sense at times.
Right.
So in Mississippi, during the civil rights movement, obviously most of the funding was coming from the North anyways,
Right.
but the money still has to come in. People still have, these organizations need this. Did COFO help kind of consolidate some of that funding needs, or?
Well, it wasn't. It was sort of the money that you're getting. What are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
How can we help?
Okay.
So the NAACP, the Legal Defense Fund is how we got a lot of lawyers
Mm-hmm.
working on things, and then there were volunteers, of course, too.
Right. Right.
But if we had to pay bail or something like that, in the beginning, before COFO, it was a matter of how much money can you raise? How much money will they give? Can SNCC raise?
Right.
Who needs the money?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody doesn't need money equally.
And for what?
And for what?
Yeah.
Because in the state of Mississippi, where you had to pay all these bonds, all those weren't SNCC people. Some of them were core people. So you need, if SNCC had the money, then it doesn't matter who. We just get them out of jail.
Right.
We want them to stay in jail. Okay, we stay in jail. So
well, then you had SNCC people who would cross the line, if you will, and work with the NAACP in respects of in a particular protest. So I'll take, for example, the Jackson sit-in. So that was something that was spearheaded by Medgravers and John Salter, right? My mom was a participant who was, a SNCC person,
right.
but yet she was involved in an NAACP demonstration.
Yes, there were
Now, obviously, initially she wasn't part of the initial demonstration. Well, the famous photograph, she wasn't initially involved in that sit-in. She was a spotter down the street from a protest that was kind of a demonstration that was meant to be kind of a.
But there was a lot of that. Bob
Right.
Zola was a member of SNCC.
Mm-hmm.
Also a member of the NAACP.
Right.
So.
Well, and Medgar wanted to be. My understanding is Medgar wanted to be part of SCLC.
Right, he did.
But NAACP wasn't quite down with that.
He wanted to be. Medgar liked the fact that we were demonstrating too.
Right. Yeah.
He didn't start out that way because the NAACP didn't want that.
Right.
But Medgar thought that was a good idea.
Mm-hmm. So
you can't judge people by an organization name.
Mm-hmm.
When we first started. Well, when I was still,
you can't judge an organization by the people either.
And we were doing a whole bunch of stuff, and we tried to get Martin Luther King to come to Mississippi, and he said he was busy and all that stuff. And there was a fight that went on, by the way, which you know about, I think. But that never got made public. It was never made public.
Oh, which fight was this?
Huh?
Which fight are we talking about?
When they all decided to go on the freedom rides.
Oh, yes.
Right, and Dr. King said, something they wanted him to go, and he didn't go, and even up to the March on Washington, when John was going to give a speech, and they didn't want him to say certain things. So there was all kinds of fights that went on.
Right.
But the movement went on, and people never knew. They knew we didn't know. Everybody they wasn't getting along, but they looked at what individuals were doing.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole thing what this person should have done was call the NAACP and said, look, this is what's upsetting me.
Mm-hmm.
The NAACP can give an opinion. Then the person writes one letter and says, the NAACP or whatever does not agree with me, but this is the way I feel about it.
Right.
Now you got your eye, and you got the NAACP is off the hook for the kind of person you are.
Right.
That's how you fight a war. And that's what we did.
So would the leadership of SNCC or local leadership like Medgar Evers of the NAACP, would they, obviously they've got some committees, some councils, before they make a statement, would they discuss that with other people within their own organization? Or would they just, fire off something and all of a sudden now you guys are going, well, wait a second, where's this coming from?
No, you discussed that. The folks and the SNCC people in Jackson talked to Jim
Right.
before they went out saying anything.
Right.
I mean, keep in mind that we had memographs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We didn't have e-media the way they do now. But the
Right.
bottom line was that you cleared this.
Yes.
Any statement you were going to do, you cleared it with the national organization.
Well, even with the national, but yeah, definitely with the national organization, but that's not how Black Lives Matter is organized. But within let's say SNCC, Mississippi, right? I'm just gonna make something up, right? But within SNCC, Mississippi, even before you're gonna clear it with national, would you guys have had that discussion? Hey, look, this is what we want to send up up the chain.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Because I have to wonder, and again, this is all speculation. I don't know Lex that well. We've met a couple of times and so forth. I can't say that I know what she's thinking and so forth and what was going on, the circumstances behind all this. But I have to wonder if this was done in a vacuum. She gets on Facebook July 4th. She's feeling upset. Bam, throws out the statement. And now those who are members of Black Lives Matter Utah are now left holding the bag because now she's spoken for them. She doesn't have to, from my understanding of how they're organized, she's not really accountable to anybody. And that's a problem.
But that is a problem.
I'm sure Janetta Williams called up her leadership, and several of them I know, and said, all right, guys, we just had this, this blew up. I'm getting phone calls from the governor. I'm getting phone calls from the church and so forth and whatnot. How do we want to address this? Let's talk about this.
Well, the problem is that, like I said, she can say whatever she wants, but if people don't buy it, she's not going to go anywhere.
Right.
And if people know how the organization is put together, they'll understand that she can do that. They also understand that she's prone to fly off the handle.
Right.
Black people should know that.
Right.
But
the wrong people also
say again.
But the wrong people buy it as well. And that's where you get those white organizations, those newspapers.
You can't stop that.
Okay.
It's like right now they're trying to figure out a way to get people to take shots. Calculations.
Right.
Because the water has been poisoned by Trump and his people.
Right.
Although some of them are now beginning to speak up.
But you can't put the genie back in the bottle now.
Yeah, but you can't. Well, you can't do anything about this woman.
Right.
Except keep doing what you're doing and go around them.
Right.
And see, the dilemma that gets posed, the reason this is a question at all, is because we have come to depend on Black Lives Matter for getting stuff done throughout the country.
Right.
And
although I think Derek Johnson of the NAACP is starting to try to. Derek Johnson of the NAACP, he's been pushing. He's been doing a lot better, getting things moving.
My thing is, Ella Baker warned us about having leaders,
right?
Identifying them, because leaders, once they're identified, begin to think too much of themselves, and they stop us from accomplishing things. So, all I'm saying is, the NAACP has probably been in Utah a long time, and it is a different kind of organization. People that want to go follow Black Lives Matter will do so.
Right.
People that want to follow the NAACP will do so. Once she has issued that statement, there's nothing we can do about it.
Right.
You can talk to her, but if she wants to be what she sounds like she wants to be, she's not going to back off from anything, because her interest is not in changing things without her getting the credit.
Right. So here's the thing then. So for those who are listening, who are involved, what I'm taking away from this is if you're in the fight, you've got your own organization, you're doing what you're doing, just make sure you keep doing what you're doing the right way. And
Right.
that when another organization comes in and creates a firestorm, those who know you and ask you about it, you can sit there and fall back on, Bob, you know who I am. You know what we're about. You know that's not what we're about.
Right.
So what I came to talk to you about today was XYZ.
Right.
And then you move on from that. Because
And
you've got the
also,
relationships, you've established your credibility for people to know who you are, even when there's a wild hair out there.
and if she offer to talk to her,
Yeah.
if she wants to talk, fine. And you just the only thing is that your message is this is what we want,
Mm-hmm.
this is how we operate, this is what you can do for us,
All right. This is what we want. This is how we operate.
and this is what you can do.
This is what you can do for us. That's a great takeaway.
And that's what you do. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't see doing anything else.
Yeah. Now, Levon, real quick, I want to jump back to Ella Baker real quick because I was at my mom's house the other day, and there was a book on the shelf about Ella Baker. And I said, "Hey, did you ever meet Ella Baker?" She goes, "Oh yeah." I was like, "Oh well, Mom, that didn't come across too positive." There was just something in her voice and the way she said it. I said, "What's the story?" Right? And she said, "Well, she sent me a letter once and was basically kind of calling me out and trying to tell me that I was, I'm spread too thin. I'm doing too much. I'm in too many places, and doing too many things." But basically, like she says, "But I never went anywhere that I wasn't invited to be." Right? I never put myself in places. I was invited to be in places. And so she had me all wrong and so forth. Yeah, that just kind of irritated me. Now, mind you, my mom was what, 20 years old, right? So, and I was like, "Oh, wow. Do you still have the letter?" Because I'm like, "Man, you got a letter signed by Ella Baker." She goes, "Oh, no, I threw that thing away." And I'm like, "That sounds like my mom too." But
Yeah,
you guys were kids.
yes, I understand that, but that's like saying I know what I'm doing, and I don't need you to tell me.
Right.
Um, I have nothing. I think that in that situation, that's a personal thing.
Right.
Your mom likes Stokely. I'm not overly fond of him,
Mm-hmm.
but that's me.
Right.
And so I don't. You know, when I first started with Medgar Evers, his thing was you guys need to calm down.
Mm-hmm.
He would come to the office and tell us that. Uh, so if I took that approach, I would never have talked to Medgar Evers
Mm-hmm.
ever again.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to
Well,
be careful who you write off.
well, my mom's pretty stubborn.
Well, that's what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be careful who you write off
Yeah.
because just because they differ or because they made a mistake, uh,
Yeah.
you know,
Now, what was your interactions with Ella Baker like?
well, because I didn't know her well,
Mm-hmm.
but like when we got out of the Hines County Penal Farm,
Mm-hmm.
we met her,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like 16 and 17 maybe. But it was about when we filed the suit against the Hines County Penal Farm.
Mm-hmm.
She was there.
Mm-hmm.
She was talking to us about what happened and who was what, and so I was very impressed by the way she dealt with us.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't see her after that. I read what she wrote. Other people talked to her, but
Mm-hmm.
I was impressed by her knowledge
Yeah.
and how she went about getting things done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that was my take.
Yeah.
And to this day, I still feel the same way that it was people like her
Mm-hmm.
that helped us get stuff done.
Yeah.
And that's what I think of. I still think that.
And allowed you to say, "Here's what we want. Here's what we're about. Here's how you can help."
That's it.
Right on. Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Levon.
Oh, my pleasure. It's good seeing you. Good
Always,
being on
man.
the call again.
It is, man. It is. We should do this more often.
All right.